Mark's Gospel is the shortest Gospel, but it's action-packed. The writer uses the Greek word for immediately over 40 times in the Gospel, and 9 of them are in this first chapter. And the word only appears 12 other times in the whole of the New Testament. Mark rattles off one event after another, from one happening to the next, so it seems there's not much detail to his story. This took place, next this event, and here we are somewhere else. And Mark takes a mere 3 verses to record the calling of Simon, Peter and Andrew, and basically says that Jesus was walking along the shore of the Sea of Galilee and saw Andrew and Simon Peter fishing, and says to them, "Come with me, and I'll have you bringing in people, not fish." They immediately left their nets and followed him. Immediately. And then another 2 verses to describe the call of James and John. These 4 fishermen trusted Jesus enough to follow, and on the surface, that sort of trust appears to be blind trust. Trusting someone that much, who you don't know, is not always a good idea. If you don't know someone, how can you trust him or her? So did Simon Peter and his brother Andrew, and then James and John, exercise some superhuman, amazing step of faith and trust that day. If that was all they had to go on, they were taking a huge, foolish gamble, because self-proclaimed messiahs were coming and going during this period, and their mission ending in disappointment and disaster. Luke's Gospel, on the other hand, has much more information, and the writer places the calling of the disciples after other events. These include the healing of many people, and particularly Simon Peter's mother-in-law. And Luke goes on to tell us that the disciples had fished all night and hadn't caught a thing. And while they were cleaning their nets, Jesus asks them if he could use their boat to preach to the crowd. So Jesus has been preaching long enough to have a big following. So when he'd finished preaching, he sends the crowd away and sends Simon Peter and the crew back out to fish. And they were rather reluctant, because they'd fished all night and caught nothing. But this time, when they went out to fish, they caught so many fish that the boat almost sank. They were so amazed and overwhelmed at what they had seen and heard and experienced. It was then at this moment that Luke tells us that Jesus says to them to leave their nets and follow him. So this wasn't blind trust after all. They were trusting their own personal experience of Jesus, not just what they'd heard from others. It was from this time and this place that they were able to trust Jesus. But Mark's succinctness leaves out these details. You can see now that Mark's brief account of the calling of Simon Peter and Andrew can give the wrong impression. They didn't just jump up and leave their nets and follow a stranger after all. So if you were really impressed with their faith and trust and felt ashamed at your own lack of faith in the light of this, you can relax a bit. They had had lots of exposure to Jesus, and there were many occasions later on when their trust was sorely tested and they failed. The point is, by then, they kept coming back because they knew Jesus. But at this point, had they become bored with their daily grind and smelling of fish? Were they young men in search of excitement? Perhaps they didn't know what they were letting themselves in for. Want a life of travel? Excitement? Challenge? Seeing new places and meeting new people? Then follow Jesus. I wonder if this isn't the message heard by the fishermen. Maybe the 4 disciples we hear about here recognized something different about Jesus' invitation. Follow suggests going someplace. Fishing for people implies more than a group of disciples. Travel, people, excitement. They found all these things while following Jesus, but probably not in the way they imagined or they had expected. Sometimes they had to glean fields and depend on strangers for food. They get kicked out of places. They find themselves in increasing danger. Even the teaching wasn't what they expected. They would experience their traditional beliefs and practices challenged. Jesus told them they would meet types of people that they had been taught from an early age not to like. And these were the sort of people that God seemed to favour. But what about those who were left behind? What about Zebedee and the hired workers? What about all the others who heard Jesus but weren't called to a life on the road? What about us? We need to remind ourselves of this obvious fact. Not everyone is called to leave their boats and nets, to leave home and family. The vast majority of us are called to stay where we are as we serve God. But at the same time, the calling of Jesus all through the Gospels is to get us out of our comfort zone, to recognize that while we have to keep on fishing where we are, we must do it consciously. We bring in as many aspects as possible of life on the road with Jesus to the everyday. We pay attention to the outcast, the sick, the poor among us. We seek justice and equality. We live kindly among our friends and families and among strangers. We allow our own faith and assumptions to be upended by new ideas and new experiences. We tread lightly on the earth. Can we do all this from home? Most of us know people who have helped us along the way, who have never shifted from their own neighbourhood, but they've journeyed with Jesus, and we remember these people with affection. Thanks for their example and inspiration. Likewise, for each one of us, we do it best when we allow ourselves to journey with Jesus, even if we don't leave our own town, our own village, or even the street we were born in. We are called to journey with Jesus wherever we are. Amen.